that might seem like an odd title, Loving and Fighting Well, but if you have arguments in your relationships and have disagreements, guess what? That just means you're a human being. And human beings, two authentic human beings, are going to disagree about a lot of things. But there are ways of settling those disagreements and coming through the other side of those disagreements where you can still cuddle each other and appreciate the fact that you might not agree on everything, but you're making progress.
And you know, we all bring a different perspective to the idea of fighting and living well together. I grew up in a family where my parents never argued. There was plenty of tension going on, but they never argued. And so when I ended up with John, he came a family where everyone could express themselves loudly, have a big argument, and then they're all kissing and making up again. So when we got married and had our first difference of opinion, we brought those models into that exchange, and it freaked me out completely. And probably it's fair to say one of the biggest challenges in our relationship, and it's been how many years now?
32 years this year.
Yeah. Has been me learning to stay and lean in when there is some tension that we need to work through and not just withdraw, and him learning to be aware of when I'm feeling a bit threatened by it.
Now, I've been working with the Parenting Place for a long time. We serve families in all sorts of different ways, mainly around giving education to parents, but also helping kids with life skills. But we've also been supporting marriage and relationships the whole way through, because it's the best thing you can do for your kids. That's us 32 years ago.
We haven't changed a bit, have we?
No. It's amazing, isn't it, that you would just think that was taken out in that photo booth out there. So, no, 32 years. We're now empty nesters. We've got 3 kids, adult kids. Bernie's 30, Susie's 28, Guy's 26, and Vika, down on the right-hand side there, she's my son's wife from Ukraine and currently incubating our grandchild. So that's an exciting stage in our relationship and family life now.
Yeah.
So, getting back on to loving and fighting well. I'm going to show you a movie, and I apologise for the fact that the quality's not good, but there's subtitles up there so you can actually read what's going on. A couple of young guys, they're actually single men, but they were disappointed by the number of marriages that they saw failing around them, so they wanted to find out what made good marriages go the distance. And so they hunted down people who've been married for 40 years at least and asked them questions and made a video of it. This is just a short excerpt from those videos. And the thing that encourages me about this video is that they disagree with each other. They talk over the top of each other. They contradict each other. They get annoyed by each other, and yet they love each other and they're going the distance. Have a look at this. Okay.
What do you think it takes to have a successful marriage?
I'll give you one word.
2 words.
He corrected me.
Respect.
And love.
And love.
There's 3 things. Number 1, you don't have to like the same thing. Number 2, always be able to reach a compromise.
You're letting me do the talking?
Well, until you're wrong.
Oh, okay. Which is one? Oh.
But there's also a third thing.
I said there's 3 things.
You give more than you ask.
I'll tell you the fourth thing.
I didn't tell them the 3rd thing.
Well, then tell them the fourth thing.
Well, tell them the 4th thing, because that might be my 3rd thing.
No one should be able to come between a husband and a wife.
And you accept the wonderful things about them, and you accept the things that, you'd like to see change a little bit.
There's no such thing as perfection, but there are perfect moments.
You never go to bed mad.
The nicest part about a spat is making up.
Let's discuss.
So there's quite a bit from Project Everlasting that we're incorporating in today. Now, by the way, we're not making any assumptions about what relationship you're in or the quality of it. Maybe you're a single person and you'd love to be in a relationship. Maybe you've been in a relationship and it's failed, and being here today takes quite a lot of courage, and maybe we'll be getting close to the bone and it might cause you some emotional pain. I'm sorry about that. Maybe you've lost a partner and you're a widow or widower. Again, today might be uncomfortable for you. I'm sorry about that. There's aspects of this that we were going to be talking about when you're in a marriage or some type of committed relationship. Maybe you're in a marriage, maybe in a less formal relationship. But I hope there's going to be skills here that you'll translate into whatever interactions you have with other people. There might be skills that, I know there's skills here that will work well if you're a parent dealing with your children or as with workmates and things. So treat this like a smorgasbord. Take what you can from this morning, knowing that not everything's going to be of any use, not everything's going to be of use to you, but some things might be.
The way you engage with each other and talk and communicate will either help your relationship develop and grow and thrive, or it can become a risk factor to your relationship not progressing as you'd hope. And we all bring these assumptions into our relationships, and often that's what gets in the way of good communication, is when both of you are making assumptions about the other person's motives or actions, and you don't clarify those sort of things. So it's like a life task in your relationship to work out how to keep communicating in a more and more meaningful way, because it actually doesn't just come naturally usually.
So up there's a list of risk factors that have been identified by marriage counsellors as causing relationships to fail, because even though we have this lovely idealistic idea of relationships and love and everything like this, the reality is we live in a culture where relationships fail. A divorce is such a common feature in our society that you can even get divorcee Barbie dolls for your little girl. Comes with half of Ken's stuff. That's not true, but it is true that there's a lot of divorce and failure, and so they've identified these things as being sort of the types of things that will whittle away at a relationship, and we're not going to dwell on that. We're not going to dwell on the negative things because we want today to be positive. As well as risk factors, there's also key stress times. One of them is when you start off in your relationship together, and it doesn't seem to matter how long you've been sort of dating and courting, and you get together and you start living with each other, and you suddenly have this wonderful opportunity of being able to see each other's faults and failings. And it is very, very common for people in their first year or two of marriage to think, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. And it takes quite a bit of effort sometimes to push past that into something better, and the good news is there is something better.
Children are a great delight and a joy to have, and they also bring with them incredible stress because your relationship has to grow up a little bit and change. And so when the babies start arriving, as well as when the children start needing you less, these can be incredibly threatening times on your relationship. And I remember when we had very little children, a very wise woman said to me, Naomi, don't worry too much about your parenting skills, you seem pretty sensible, it should be right, but worry about not being a stranger with John when your kids need you less.
And we do remember when we started noticing the kids needed us less. I remember our first holiday when the kids were all off at their own camps or holidaying with friends and things, and it was just the two of us sitting in a caravan. And I'm thinking, who's going to dam the creek with me? Who's going to fly a kite with me?
And I think he did say to me, do you have to breathe like that?
Yeah, he's going shack mad in this little caravan, staring at each other. But in actual fact, we now see this as just another stage, and we're actually enjoying it. But it can be a stress. So can be crises and failures and setbacks and illnesses. Also retirement and things. These are times when you have to be just a little bit more vigilant. And this is one of the things we're going to be talking about, is that your relationship changes over time, and you need to be making friends with each other over and over again and discovering who you're with. Because I've had 5 relationships before this current one, all with Naomi though. She was my girlfriend, my fiance, my young bride, a young mother. She was a student, she was a social worker, now she's a CEO. As she's getting better and better and better, I'm having to change gear and upskill a bit to keep up with her. So anyhow, one of the key things that we want to talk about this morning is a set of skills developed by, and I can't remember his name, Gary Chapman, I think. It's just this idea that there are preferred ways of showing love. And some of these ways will seem very natural to you, some will seem awkward, some even might be a little bit repugnant to you. But it's like we're wired differently to show love in different ways, and it's usually the way that we like to have love shown to us. And I know at least 2 couples that have found this so valuable that they claim it's saved their relationship. And so in our family of 5, very conveniently, we've all got a different love language. Actually, it was very inconvenient at times, but it's very convenient when you come to talk about it. Now, if I buy Naomi flowers or chocolates. It's never a dumb thing to do. But if I really want to make her purr, if I really want to let her know how much she's loved and everything, I'll tell her. I'll tell her what a wonderful wife she is and how lovely she's looking and what a great job she's doing and everything like that. And she just melts because her love language is words of affirmation.
That's why I like texting, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, she loves mushy little texts. Just got to be careful who I send them to. If I get the number wrong, it'd be so embarrassing trying to explain that away. I sent a very clever little text composed of little fruit icons, and I should have checked that it wasn't going to a whole group. But anyhow, so there you go. But words, and it's also where she's most sensitive. If I am careless with my tone, harsh with my words, if I omit to show my gratitude, she's so wounded. She gets really hurt. And it's the way she shows love. She praises the kids up, praises us up. Her staff always get Christmas cards and things from her. And so it's the way that she shows her love. Bernie would be gifts, wouldn't he?
Yes, even as a little kid, he was always generous, wanting to give people stuff, but also trade. So he'd be lending his stuff and borrowing other people's stuff. And I remember one time at the supermarket when he was very young, using his pocket money to give a kid, a complete stranger, a ride on one of those machines at the supermarket.
A very kind kid, but he was also so offended if his little brother and sister went in and took his stuff or touched his gear in his room because things had meaning to them. They had significance to him. So that's his love language. My love language
is acts of service.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to click onto this, that John really feels that I love him and knows that I love him when I do something for him.
And likewise, I pot around the house in my toolbox pretending to fix things, and that's how I show love for my family. And this is the thing. This is more than just an observation on human life. This can become a useful insight and tool in your relationships. Because what if you're sitting at home and in comes your man driving up the drive and you think, oh, here comes my man, he's going to come running up here and hug me and kiss me and tell me how much he loves me. And no, he's gone in the garage again. Doesn't he love me anymore? Of course he loves you. That's why he is down in that garage fixing that lawnmower for you. So you can then show your love to him by doing the lawns for him on Saturday. You see how this love language thing works? You might be loving your heart out, but it's not in your love language. You know, how could she say I don't love her? There's not a tap in the house that leaks. I painted the garage for that woman. Can't she see how much I love her? And, you know, it's just like one of them speaking Serbian and the other one speaking Swahili. It's just missing each other, not communicating. They're both loving, but they're not connecting. Petra Bagust, who works at the parenting place, says that she is a words person, but her husband is very much an acts of service guy. She would love her man to tell her how much he loves her more often than he does. But she says, I'll come home from a late night job and I'll jump into bed and there'll be a hot water bottle waiting for me at the bottom of the bed. And I translate that in my head. I translate from his language to my language. That's him saying to me, I love you. And when you start to do this, some people suddenly realize that they're not in the bleak and lonely, loveless marriage that they thought they were in. They suddenly realize there's a whole lot of love going on. It's just being transmitted in different love languages. What else have we got up there? Susie.
Well, Susie, our daughter, she, from very young age, loves spending time with us. So we used to do a thing called mum dates, dad dates. You'd get in the car with her and she'd just talk. You barely get a word in edgeways.
She could talk a glass eye to sleep.
Oh, absolutely. So she's about quality time and attention.
Yeah, and our youngest guy, especially when he's a little fella, very much physical closeness and touch.
Oh, bedtime was like WWF. I'd hear him and John crashing down the passageway. Everyone's safe, so don't worry. But, you know, they'd do this wrestling and this play fighting until he got too big and John would get hurt and would be begging for him to stop. But that was kind of, John would walk in from work and he'd tackle him, you know, and they'd do this play fight.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the drugs we gave him, we wouldn't have got him to sleep at all, I think. But, you know, he would show his affection not so much through cuddles and kisses. He would show his love and respect for me by taking me out in a flying tackle as I walked down the passage, or giving me a nipple cripple or a wedgie or some other sign of masculine affection like that. So So here's the thing. You might be brilliant at loving in your love language, but if the people you are loving have got a different love language, it might be like you're jabbering to them in a foreign language and they're not understanding. You might be thinking, of course my daughter knows I love her. I make her beds for her. I make her meals for her. I drive her everywhere. I'm coaching the netball team. Of course she knows that I love her. No, she might think that you're a slightly frantic, manic, overworked woman who should slow down and give her a kiss and a cuddle every so often. Because her love language is something different. She is waiting for you to show love in her love language. So what can you do? You can do that translating of what other people are doing and suddenly realizing they're doing that out of love for me. And you can also learn to speak a few words in another person's love language. And do you know what? It'll feel awkward. If you're not a touchy-feely person, you might feel a little bit awkward. But you can still, rest your hand on their shoulder, put your arm around, and things like this. You can try and speak a few words, and you might be amazed at the response you get. You might not find words come easily to you. With your kids, you're okay, get outside. It just sticks in your throat because you're not sort of wired like that. But maybe you could just send them a text. Thinking of you, hope you're having a great day. My mate Pio Tere said he'd try putting notes in his kids' lunch boxes. And he thought that'd be a good way of showing my love for them. But he said, I couldn't think what to say. The first notes in their lunchbox just said, eat your lunch. But, he's getting better at it. So love languages, you just think about it. I've got to give you some homework. A bit rough getting homework. But this is the homework for you as parents. I want you to try all 5 love languages every day with each of your children. Because you might be able to work out your kids' love languages, but maybe not. Maybe they haven't settled down into one anyway, but you probably have settled down into your love language and you're loving them brilliantly in your love language, but maybe you need to broaden it out. And so with your kids, could you try all 5 love languages every day with each of your children? And with your partner, what's their love language? What's something you could do in their love language? You don't have to wonder about this. They're probably sitting next to you now. Why don't you take about 30 seconds to have a quick natter and a guess at what each other's love language is? Okay, go for it. If you're not with your partner at the moment, talk to the person next to you, even if you don't like them, about this. 30 seconds? Yep. I reckon you've already had 10 seconds. You better be getting on to the real stuff now. You blokes are let off down here. It's too embarrassing, isn't it, talking to each other about things like that. 10 seconds more, so if you've been doing all the jabbering, you better let the other person have a say. And if they're still talking, you can bet their love language is words. Okay, let's roll on. You can carry on that conversation over lunch. Okay. Now, life is made up of habits, and good relationships are made up of habits as well.
And one thing you can gift to your relationship is actively practicing positive habits. Because often we unconsciously do negative ones, and it's like you drain the emotional tank of your partner when you just unconsciously keep throwing negative habits their way. And there they go, there's a list of some of those negative habits. Things like criticising and complaining and being a bit threatening and punishing and all that sort of thing. Whereas why not invest in your relationship by developing really positive habits that have a wonderful flow-on effect? Things like being supportive, being encouraging, actually listening rather than always talking at your partner, accepting them, that they don't have to be like you, they're allowed to be different, trusting them, respecting them, and negotiating through your differences rather than demanding.
And we will be talking a bit about the negotiating side of things in a little bit of time, but I want to show you a horror film. You might have to put your hands over your kids' eyes if they're here. It's actually a trailer for a movie that I thought was actually quite good. It was a movie called Something About Schmidt, but the trailer actually It really shocked me, thinking, oh, how could that ever happen? Let's have a look at this film.
Schmidt. I am 66 years old and recently retired. Helen and I have been married 42 years.
Don't dilly-dally.
Lately, I find myself asking the same question. Who is this old woman who lives in my house?
Isn't that sad? Becoming total strangers, even though you're living with each other decade after decade. But the sad thing is, it happens. Some years ago, Naomi and I have been married, I don't know, a decade or more, and we heard this idea at a marriage seminar, and we thought we'd give it a try, this technique. And since it was our own seminar that we were giving, we thought we especially should try it. And it's where we walk along a beach, sharing your dreams and your things that are special to you and things from your childhood, and the other person doesn't say anything. You get to the other end of the beach and you turn around and the other person talks. So we got a babysitter in, and we went down to Long Bay Beach, which is near us, and it was a lovely night, nice big moon, gentle wind in the trees, hoons doing wheelies in the car park. You know, it was a beautiful evening. I wasn't expecting very much from this. Naomi and I had been in a good relationship for years and years. She wasn't like an undiscovered continent to me. She was more like a familiar suburb. And so I was not expecting to get very much out of this exercise. But as we walked up this beach, and she was sharing stuff about her past, about her hopes, about things that she'd wanted as a young person, dreams that she still had, I found myself falling in love with this strange woman that I didn't know. I thought I knew her so well, but there was so much that I didn't know. It was sort of like living in a house, and you've been there for years, but you notice a bit of wallpaper peeling off, and you pull it back, and there's a door, and you open the door, and there's rooms that you didn't even know existed. I don't care how long you've been together. You might have been together 10, 20, 30, 50 or more years. You still don't know each other completely. That person that you go through life with, yes, you know a lot about them, but could I just say, make it your task to actually learn more and more about them. And the other thing is they change. They're becoming different. It's like that game where you pass around a parcel, and every time the music stops, you peel off another layer of wrapping paper to discover something else. And life together is like that. I'm endlessly discovering new things about this lovely lady that I didn't know. It makes me very grateful. It makes me amazed. And it makes life better. So endlessly work on discovering who you're with. Right.
Because you still are on that journey of getting to know each other. Because we grow up in different situations with different families, we do bring different perspectives and different things into these relationships.
Yeah.
And it can take a lifetime to discover some of them.
And also, sometimes it's like watching a flower blossom as your partner overcomes some challenge or wound and gets some healing in there. And rather than just being recoiling away from you as they struggle through something, it's actually an incredible privilege to walk with them along that journey and to see the growth that they're doing. Now, one of the ways of being able to understand who you're with is to have a little bit of an understanding of personality types, which is, well, it's a bit down the pop psych end of things. I used to be a scientist, and so I'm a little bit scathing sometimes of stuff that passes itself off as science. I don't know whether personality typing is all that scientific, but you know what? It's a lot of fun. It also gives you a vocabulary and understanding of how people are different. And there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. You might have done personality tests before, Myers-Briggs, Enneagrams,
Yeah.
All sorts of things like this. This one is based on a very old system where it divided people into 4 categories, and I could never remember or understand the terms. I think it was phlegmatic and
sanguine.
Asthmatic, I think was one of them. And I could never remember what they were until someone put animal labels on them. And once I could remember and understand the animal types, it clicked into my head. And I found it quite useful. By the way, as we go through 4 different personality types. You'll get some insights into yourself, your kids and your partner, but just realise there is no right or wrong or best or worst personality types. Also, nobody fits into a box neatly. You'll find that you'll have some characteristics probably from all 4 boxes, but you might predominantly be one particular type. And you also, all of you can have great relationships regardless of what personality type you are or who your partner is. It's just a different dynamic. And this might just open your eyes to see, this is why we end up having those fights over and over again.
Because it may not actually be about you, might it? It just might be a personality difference.
That's right. Okay, some of you are fortunate enough to have as your partner an otter, an entertainer, someone who loves fun, who very much sees a group and heads for them, outgoing, extroverted and enthusiastic. And if you've got kids who are otters, you are so fortunate because you're going to have to sit through endless little plays over the summer as they do little mimes and things and dances for you and tell lots and lots of knock-knock jokes who don't work. And if you're married to an otter, you are sick to death of hearing that same joke that your partner tells every other time, but you love them anyway. They're fantastic to have in a workplace because they're enthusiasts. Come on, guys, let's go, we can do this, and I'll let you do the real work because I'm bored already. And that's unfortunately probably the downside of otters. Great starters, not great at finishing, fantastic on the big ideas, not so good on the little details.
Quite disruptive in an office situation.
Yeah, no, they can be wonderful in an office situation.
Yeah, but quite bouncy and loud usually.
But they can make people enjoy life so much more, okay? So all of them have got strengths, all of them have got weaknesses, but otters, if you're, they're small, the thing is they might not be easy to live with at times because they're off on new stuff, they don't stick with things and everything like this. After we've skimmed over some of these things, we might just talk about how what they might particularly need in your relationship. But honestly, if you're married to an otter, if you have otter children, the thing might be just to slow them down and understand that they just need your attention and approval. In fact, the thing that really wounds an otter is your scorn, the rolling of the eyes, the contempt. They live for your approval. That's a bit sad, but they do. They love to be approved by you and others. And so if you've got an otter, a bit of a clown, a bit of a performer, a bit of an entertainer for a partner, aren't you lucky? Aren't you lucky?
It will never be dull. I might have one of those.
Yeah. So otters, yep, you started to get an insight into them. If I asked for a show of hands, who are the otters here? They wouldn't just show their hands, they'd jump up on their seats. So I'm not going to do that for the sake of your upholstery. Okay, but others of you have got the fortune of being partnered with a lion. Now, lions are powerful. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, lions tend to be running things, taking charge, do it my way. I know what we're doing here. So, lions can really make you feel safe because they will take responsibility and sort out what to do. They can also be a little bit steamrollery and perhaps forget to take people on the journey. Yeah,
our daughter is very much a lion, and you can tell that right from the early years.
Yeah, we love Susie, and we all know to do things Susie's way.
Yeah, we worked out the right parenting technique with her. We just do everything she tells us to do, and that seems to work out fine. But we can see that even with her little friends. I can remember she had her friends playing around. Yes. And she was playing families, weren't they?
They were playing families, and they were, mum and dad and the children, all that. And our youngest child, Guy, said, can I play? Because Susie's games are great fun. You always want to be in one of her games. And she looked at him and she went, yep, okay, just sit over there and pretend you haven't been born yet.
And he did. That's the thing. Very powerful leader, lions. Lions are enterprising, firm, problem solvers, love challenges. Fantastic. They're going to go on and make a lot of money and everything like that. So they build big organisations and big groups. That's great. Is there a downside for the lions? Yes. Sometimes they can burn off the people that are close to them. Sometimes they're so focused on the goals, they forget the people alongside of them. Sometimes you might have, if you've got lion children, you might notice that their friends are sort of following along, more like followers than friends. And so lions, if you're a lion, you need to soften up a little. You've got some special homework. I gave you some homework before, but lions, if you've got a bit of a lionish streak to you. You've got some extra homework, and that is lose an argument, which is hard because you're always right. But out of love, you're going to force out of your mouth, I see your point. That's a good idea. Yeah, we could do that. There's something inside of you will be grating, but you can do this because you really do love people. Because lions sometimes can burn off the people that are close to them because they can be so focused on just doing things, they sometimes forget to feel the feelings of the person next to them. They forget the empathy. We'll talk about coping with lions a bit, but perhaps the opposite of that is the golden retriever. I'm married to a lovely golden retriever. I don't call her that very often for obvious reasons.
That's good.
But golden retrievers make the best and most loyal and faithful of friends because they care. They're empathetic, they're sympathetic. It does make them reluctant to push their own point of view or to change. And golden retrievers care about people. Now, Naomi mentioned before that she is a boss. And she does that not by being a lion, she does it by being a good golden retriever. She tasks people well, she understands her staff so well, she cares about them. They'd crawl over broken glass for her because they know that she cares about them. You can be a leader in any of these different personality types, and but golden retrievers, you know, their strength is to know other people's hearts. Now, you can have otters and golden retrievers and otters and lions and everything, but there is a combo that does tend to end up in a counsellor's office more often than any other, and you can imagine what it is. It's the lion-golden retriever combo, which starts off so well because the lion shoves and the golden retriever doesn't seem to mind so much. But the thing is, you can't love a bully for long. And lions, I'm not saying you're bullies, I'm saying golden retrievers, you will turn the people you love into bullies because you're not good at defending your boundaries. You're not good at saying no. You're not good at standing up and defending your own point of view. And that impacts your work relationships. You'll turn your bosses into monsters, you'll turn your kids into kids that'll whine and walk all over you, and you might actually wreck your relationship with the person you love because you feel like you're not being heard, cared for, or listened to. And it might be that you need some gentle assertiveness skills.
Yes, I remember being astounded a couple of years ago when I was working with someone who was definitely a lion, and I was in golden retriever mode and just caving in and pacifying them just to get us over the line with a project. And when I realised that they saw me doing that as actually pulling back and not engaging, I had to sort of lean in and find a backbone from somewhere. And when I did that, we actually worked very well together. But my natural tendency was to just pacify.
Right, so, and some of you are probably definitely the beavers, the hard workers, the detailed people, the people that love to get things done on time, in order. You have checklists, you read manuals, your garage is probably cleaner than an operating theatre. You know that power cords get folded this way, not that way. You've possibly got stenciled shapes for all your tools out in the garage, and the tools have to go back on those shapes, and they have to even go back the right way. They can't go around the wrong way. And you get stressed if they're not there.
You get your jollies from writing a list, and then you get an even bigger thrill from crossing it off as you achieve it.
Yes. And so this is sometimes a way that you cope with anxiety. Because sometimes you can make life more able to be coped with by making it predictable and orderly and tackling it one step at a time. That's good if that works for you, but it can have a downside. It can make you dull. You've got to make sure that you're not getting so absorbed into your projects, so absorbed into your video games and computers and your projects that you don't lose touch of the real flesh and blood world around you, especially that person who loves you. So your beaver children, they're going to need a little bit of protection from you because sometimes people take advantage of beavers and get them to work too hard. You might need to actually show them where the off switch is on the wall to get them to turn off their tablets, their computers or whatever, and put your knee in the small of their back and push them out into some sunshine. Otherwise they can die of a lack of vitamin D.
Yeah, we've had a few students board with us who have been beavers, and they'll just study all day and all night. And John or I will go, no, you're coming with us to walk the dog. No, you are.
Yes, and honestly, your performance peaks after a certain period of time if you're working harder and harder, and afterwards it starts to deteriorate. So much better if you're back with a little bit of relaxation and things like this and engaging in other things. So, beavers, fantastic. I'm so grateful for beavers because as an otter, the people that work as beavers in my life, in the office and things like that, they keep me out of jail. They do the bookkeeping and make sure that I turn up at times and places and things. If I was being operated on, do you think I'd want an otter surgeon? You know, you come out of the anaesthetic and there they are grinning at you going, oh, I carried on the scar to make a neat smiley face on your belly. No, I don't think you'd want. You'd want a nice, cautious, careful beaver who's going to be checking everything and twice. If you're flying in a plane, do you want an otter pilot? No. Ladies and gentlemen, the co-pilot reckons we can't, but I reckon we can. We're going to have a crack at flying this under the harbour bridge. No, I think I'd want a beaver at the controls doing it right. I'm just so grateful to you if you're a beaver. But it just might mean that you need to widen your eyes and take a few more risks and be a bit braver. But as you come into your relationships, what do they need? And as I said, the otter sounds a little bit shallow, but we really do enjoy affection, attention, approval. And just remember that when you come to give me some applause at the end, okay? Because we do get wounded because we live our lives a little bit too much in the eyes of other people.
And I think just be mindful that if you've got to give an otter some negative feedback or put a handbrake on, just be aware of how you go about that, because they may mishear that intention as you being a wet blanket.
Even if you are. Okay, right. And lions, they are fairly low maintenance, but they do love it when you give them the credit for their hard work and their courage. It takes huge courage to be a lion, to make big, bold decisions. And when you're making big, bold decisions, you also make huge, steaming mistakes. And you can fail, and you can crash a business, and you can lose a friendship, and you can do stuff that just wasn't on the scheme for you, but because miscalculation or whatever, you end up face down in the dirt. And what happens when lions crash? People laugh. When you see on the news, when you hear of someone who gets, a CEO or something like that who's failed, not much sympathy. Not much sympathy. Now, if you are in a relationship with a lion, you never have to say that the dumb thing that they did was right, but if you just draw yourself alongside them and show that you are still loyal to them as a person and that you care about them, that will be so, so touching to them. They'll be so grateful that you're not judging them, but you're still loving them. It's part of the grace and gratitude of living together in a loving relationship that, yes, they've failed, but you are still so loved. That matters so much to a lion.
The golden retriever, well, we just want to know that you see us, that you value us, and that you respect us. So in other words, don't take your golden retriever for granted. It matters to them that they're not invisible.
No, very well said, Naomi.
Thank you, John.
Yes, golden retrievers really do value being appreciated. If you've got golden retriever children, let them overhear you saying how well they're doing when you're talking to your mum on the phone or something. They just love that. It really makes them purr, if that's not mixing up metaphors too much about golden retrievers, whatever.
Move on. Anyway, the beaver.
Your beaver partner, very focused on projects and everything like this, they sometimes need a little bit of space to recuperate their energies. They don't like to be hit with things without a bit of warning. If you give them a bit of lead up to something, hey, I'd love to be able to talk to you after dinner tonight about what we're going to be doing over the summer, and a bit of warning about things like that can work really, really well. Scheduling.
And maybe just recognising if you're not a beaver, sometimes it really matters to them that you get on with something that needs attention. So then they can relax, because maybe they can't relax till you've done it. I work with someone who's almost frothing if I haven't read the policies in time, you know, and they're trying really hard not to nag me about it. But so every now and then I just announce I'm about to do it, and a big grin goes over their face as I sit there and read the policies and sign them off.
So, Sunday morning, your otter wants to go out windsurfing and going for a run and playing, playing out with his car and things like this, and you can't face the week ahead until you've done all the chores that have to be done. Do you understand how this sort of thing can introduce a little bit of tension? Because you're different. You know what? You can negotiate around that where both of you get your needs met. But understanding how one of you can be becoming anxious. How could you be becoming anxious about the fact that we want to have fun? I get anxious when I don't get everything done. That's why I'm getting anxious. And when you start to understand that there's different fears and motivations involved of all these different personality types, you know what? You're going to have a lovely relationship if you care about each other's priorities and things. Space, support and security, so important. Now, let's move on to one of the key skills as a parent, as a colleague, as a friend, but especially as a loving partner, and that is listening. Listening. I love this phrase. Being listened to is so much like being loved, most people can't tell the difference. I wish I'd learnt this earlier in my marriage, that the most loving thing I can say to Naomi sometimes is, oh honey, how did that make you feel? With a sort of a constipated look on my face, you know, not looking too stern, because then she thinks that I'm judging her, and not too smiley, because then she thinks I'm not taking it seriously, but just the right neutral look. You're going to have to practice this in the bathroom. But guys, we can get good at this. In fact, why don't we just practice this now? Sort of neutral look, and ready? Say again. Oh, honey. Yeah, you can do this, you can do this. It's this listening thing. It's no wonder that people fall in love with their doctors and counsellors and pastors and things. They listen to me. Okay, and I just wish that I'd learned earlier in my relationship what's going on. Because sometimes Naomi would be talking to me about a problem, and I'd get in trouble because she'd notice my eyes glaze and drift off axis a little bit, and she'd think that I'd stopped caring. No, I just received enough data to start solving her problem for her. Wrong, wrong, wrong. She doesn't want me to engage my brain to solve her problem. She's got a perfectly good brain sitting up there, better than mine. She doesn't want to engage this, she wants to engage this. She's wanting my heart to come alongside. And so one of the most lovely skills you can develop as a parent, as a friend, and as a lover is the art of reflective listening. Now, we made this little video to teach parents the skill of reflective listening. And even though this is a dad dealing with his son, I think every one of these skills, you can see how it would work in a loving and intimate relationship. Different circumstances, of course, but have a look at this little video.
It's good to listen, hard though. Always want to butt in with my advice or solutions. I just want to comment on what someone's telling me. Yeah, no, I remember the time when you know, sometimes I just need to learn to shut up. Hey boy, what's wrong with you? Oi, hang on. Some phrases and tones will shut kids down straight away. Now come on, let's try it again, Chief. Hey son, you're looking a bit sad, mate. Nah, much better. Leaning in, bit of eye contact. It's all good. You okay, mate?
That stupid teacher. She picks on me all the time.
Mrs. Brown's not stupid. And if she's picking on you for a reason. So obviously, you've done something wrong. Yeah, good one, bro. That's going to gently draw the problem out, isn't it?
It's that stupid teacher. She picks on me all the time.
So you're feeling a bit picked on?
Well, I was printing my project and she told me to hurry up and sit down because you should have finished that last period.
Well, if you should have finished it last period, why didn't you finish it last period? See, that's the problem, boy. You need to be a little bit more organised. Hey, careful, bro.
Well, I was printing my project and she told me to hurry up and sit down because you should have finished that last period.
You must have felt a bit stinky.
Well, it wasn't that bad because a whole lot of people in our class didn't finish it all. I might do my next project here at home then.
Good idea.
Anything to eat?
Bro, let's go and raid the fridge. See? The kid's got a good brain. And after they've cleared the emotion out, they can start using it. But if you pile in there with accusations and blame, then their brains just jam up with emotion. Reflective listening. A great skill you can use in just about every relationship. Unless, of course, you work as a bouncer.
Okay. Can you see that's a great skill to use with your kids, but it's also a skill that we can use with each other. Actually repeating, rather than just thinking of a response, an answer, a solution whenever they're talking, repeating back to them what they've just said in your own paraphrase, and perhaps asking a question that asks for a bit more clarification. And what's happening? They feel supported and loved, and as the brain unloads of all that stress stuff, their own brain starts coming up with solutions.
And really, you're trying to hear their heart, and your goal is to keep the relationship intact. So listening always helps you see beyond the words to how someone's feeling, and you'll learn something.
How much advice did that dad end up giving? Absolutely none. Was the problem solved? Absolutely. Is that kid going to make better choices and decisions in the future? Completely, yeah. And so it's a fantastic way of approaching
And will he
things.
feel more likely to share next time?
Yeah.
So in your relationships, you want to have a safe relationship where you really feel you can be vulnerable with each other. But if you're going to get a lecture or everything solved straight away, you're less likely to do that.
One of the things that took me a while to learn was, why isn't Naomi more grateful when I pointed out how wrong she is? And so often it's just a matter of actually just listening a bit more and listening a bit more and then realising, hey, she's all over this anyway. She's just bringing me on board as a cheering squad rather than as a problem solver. Okay, so listening with your heart and not trying to fix and solve.
How irritating is it? How irritating is it when you bare your soul and someone immediately starts solving? You really just want them to connect first.
Having said this, there have been men that have heard this type of advice over the years, and they've ended up making movies like this next little movie, which completely contradicts what we just said, but I think it's quite fun. Have a look at this.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't
try to see things
Now I'm really confused because that completely contradicts what I said before, but anyhow, you can sort that one out. Okay.
Look, there's only really one person you will successfully control in your life, and that's yourself. And often if we want to make or see change or growth in that person we love and live with, the best thing we can often do is work on ourselves. And if you had to do an honest stock take on yourself and ask yourself, what am I like to live with? You'll probably come up with a few things you could work on developing and growing in your own life. Because the minute you try to force your ideas on someone else or shape them into who you think they should be, not only are you not accepting who they are, you're also putting control and, what's the word I want? Manipulation into the relationship, and it's unhealthy. So it's interesting how contagious change is, though. So if you can work on something in yourself and find new ways of responding, new ways of acting, that often inspires those nearest and dearest to you to want to change too. It has a contagious effect.
Of course there'll be things that you want to change in your partner, but the best way to bring out that change is to try and inspire it by changing in yourself. And this comes right back to respect, which I mentioned before, that those two guys that went around interviewing people that had been married 40 years ago, they claimed this was the number one thing. Respect. If there's respect and trust in a relationship, it'll go the distance. Sometimes romantic love can ebb and flow. Sometimes you don't feel like you're loving them as much as you used to, but if the respect is still there and the trust is still there, then that's a fantastic environment where the romantic love can grow back. And so it means no joking about each other, no undermining each other when they're not there, no telling to the kids, you know, oh, don't worry about mum, she's just a bit, edgy at the moment. You go ahead and do it anyway. No, none of that type of,
No rolling of the eyes.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of the things we wanted to talk about predominantly this morning. You are not headed for disaster if you have conflict.
You should expect conflict.
You're an authentic
You're both
person.
different.
You have tastes, you have opinions, you've got a brain, you've got a different background. Of course things aren't going to line up, and so sometimes that will translate into differences of opinion, and sometimes that could be heated. You're different. Get over it. And now, one of the interesting things that we read about this is that there are some things that are just not going to get solved. And I really like this little bit of research that's in red up here. 800 people who loved each other were asked, who's the most irritating person in your life? And they said, my partner. They've got the best opportunity to irritate you. They live so closely to you. Of course they're going to irritate you, but you get on. You get on, you get over it. And the thing is, don't try and resolve the irresolvable. Now, we're going to talk about some problem-solving techniques. I think they're pretty cool, but there's some things that are not going to be sorted out. If you don't like your mother-in-law, how much counselling is it going to take before you do? Some things are not going to get solved. Some things you just have to live with, and you can live with it very happily. Okay. Do you want to read that quote?
Yes, so up there you can see that there are some things you learn to live with, some things, some things are for solving, some things you just shrug your shoulders at. Learn to live with the rest, just put up with it. All you do is waste your breath and get angry over the things that can't be changed. You're better off not trying to change them. Walk around them, commit to staying together even though there is something you don't like.
Okay, you're starting to realise that some things aren't going to be fixed, but it doesn't usually matter that much. There are a few deal breakers, but in general, most of these things can be worked through. Now, let's have a look at the things that can be sorted out. If you're going to actually raise some issue of budget and timetabling and something around the house, something that's irritating you, one of the things is to realise, what's the goal here? Am I looking for a solution or am I looking for a victory? Am I looking for a change that's going to make life better for the both of us, or am I looking for grovelling submission where they feel wounded and bruised? And so you can win an argument sometimes. You can berate and browbeat and be powerful and dump facts all over them, and they feel like they have to submit, and you've won. Yay! Have you really won? What have you really won by causing your partner to feel bad and feeling like they've lost? Okay.
Yeah, and so think about those personality types. If you know what sort of personality type you're living with and you have to bring something up, and some things are worth solving, not everything you shrug your shoulders about, some things you have to solve, then you gently think about what's the best approach. If I'm in their shoes, how do I want to hear this? Sometimes we have to learn to speak that other language when we do this.
Also, anger is a terrible thing to bring into this scenario. Sometimes you'll feel passionate, sometimes you might need a little bit of a time out and a bit of a pause to get a grip on your emotion, but bringing anger into a scenario like this. It's just not the place. This is supposed to be the safest place in the world for each of you, to be able to bring up an issue and know that you're not going to get an angry response. And so one of the key things that helps people sometimes stay calm is that last point on that slide up there. Stay calm.
Yes, because you can look quite ridiculous when you're angry. So most of us don't pull that off well. So try and stay calm. And if you stay calm, you're giving that other person a better chance of regrouping and really hearing what you're trying to say.
Yep, you'll definitely be taken more seriously. Okay, you want to talk to that one?
Yeah, so stick to specifics. What often happens when you're trying to deal with a conflict is you very quickly can globalise it into you always, you never, and you shouldn't, you should. Whereas it's better to just own it for yourself and say what is specifically annoying you. So it may be as simple as the way you forget to close the fridge door. That's it. It's not world peace we're trying to solve here. It's just something very specific. So stick to that. And as you're talking, watch out for either of you drifting off to widening the problem and just bring it back to that particular issue that you're trying to talk about.
Number 3, they can bring facts that you can't contradict sometimes, but they can never contradict how something makes you feel. If you said, this level of debt is completely it's unreasonable, they could say, no, this level of debt that we've got here, I've checked the figures, we've got enough to cover this shouldn't be a problem. They've answered you with facts that you can't really contradict. But if you say, I feel stressed with this level of debt, I've always tried to keep on the black side of the ledger, and so to have this level of debt makes me feel very uncomfortable. They can fake, they've got the facts, but they can't really contradict that emotion. If you say, you're driving too dangerously, they can say, no, I'm perfectly safe and skillful at this speed, this is fine. I've come back to you with facts and an opinion. But if you say, I feel uncomfortable and unsafe driving at this speed, you can't argue against that. That's your emotion, that's how you feel.
And when you put the I feel statement in, it gives your partner a chance to really understand why you're upset about that. Because often they just think you're being a beaver or anal about it, whereas, if you say how it makes you feel, that gives them a window into what's really going on for you.
And so it's not your facts versus their facts, it's very often, how do I care and love for my partner? The best definition of love is desiring the very best to the other person, and so even though I think that my solution to this problem is better in some respects, I can see that this is going to be better for us if we go with their solution. Number 4. Okay. Choosing the right timing.
All these things require timing if you want to have a successful outcome of coming to some solution. So when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're stressed with a work deadline, when the kids are bouncing around all over the place, these are probably not good times. So find a time and commit to it, but also if things are you can sense that your partner's getting triggered and there's an emotional reaction here and you're not actually moving through to a solution, take a break. But also work out when you'll come back to it again, because for someone who perhaps finds conflict a bit challenging, that can be quite scary, not knowing when we're going to get back to this.
Okay. And turn 5, turn arguing into problem solving. Now this could be one of the key skills that you take away from this morning, and that is very often you'll arrive at a conflict. I'll have a solution that I think's great. You'll have a solution that you think's great, and we'll put our two solutions out there to fight it out. In actual fact, there may be another solution that's better than those two. You might think yours is best, I might think mine is best, but if we're going at each other, we might be missing the fact that there's a better solution than either of them. And so rather than putting the conflict between us, we sometimes have stood side by side and said, here's one solution, here's another solution. Are there other solutions? Like a scenario that happened years ago when our kids were young, and we'll act it out for you. Oh, honey, I see an email from your parents. They're coming to stay.
Yeah, they're coming for 2 weeks. Great, eh?
Oh, fantastic.
They can stay with us.
Actually, I'll go down and book them in down at the local motel because it'll be a lot better.
You're not doing that. That is typical of you. Bunging them in a motel. They're coming all the way from Dunedin. I need them to feel welcome. They're staying with us.
No, you feel that you need to show off that you're a good housekeeper or something because, look, we've got a little house. We'll have to put all 3 kids into 1 bedroom. They'll cover the whole lounge in the Herald. They'll watch TV1 all day long when the kids want to watch other
And
stuff.
we'll have a very happy time.
Okay, all right. Can you see how this is shaping up? 2 solutions. I want to get them out of the house. Naomi wants them to stay with us, even though it's going to be a lot of stress and pressure. So we fortunately were aware of this tool. So we actually decided to think, are there better solutions, other solutions? In fact, let's gather as many possible solutions together and float them around like balloons, bobbing around, and then we'll evaluate them. Here's a solution. They could stay back in Dunedin, send us the money, we'll go to the Gold Coast.
Now, the important thing about this is you don't comment on these ideas
That's
at the time.
You just let them float a little bit. Yeah.
They could stay with us.
They could stay with us. I could book them in down at the motel.
What about if we see if a neighbour's going away, they could stay there and be
Okay.
close, but not on top of us.
All right, so we're already accumulating a few. And then after we've got a few, we'll go through and start to analyse them. Hey, I was only joking about the Gold Coast, but I had to get it out of the system.
It's got merit, though. We should think about that.
So we'll pop that balloon. Now, the motel...
Look, Dad would want to pay, we'd want to pay. It would get awkward.
And it's a bit of an ashtray. Okay, no, we'll get rid of that one. We'll pop that one. We'll put that one
Look,
aside.
to be honest, I know it kills me to admit it, but I do get quite stressed when we're all piled into a little house, so it may not be the happiest of times.
No, but it is an option. We'll keep that one. We'll put that on the shelf and we'll see if anything better comes along. Neighbours, I don't really know our neighbours well enough for them to...
And what if we damage something or the kids damage something? It'd be awkward, won't it?
Let's do some more research. Now, the thing is, we hadn't come up with anything that really worked there apart from perhaps staying with us, but then we thought, hold on, we know a lady who's got parents who live down in Dunedin. No, children who live down in Dunedin. And we thought maybe we can work a house swap. We investigated. We did a bit more research. It wasn't her solution or my solution. It was a completely new one that we came up with together. And in actual fact, that worked out brilliantly. They did a house swap. She went and lived at their place. They lived up down in Dunedin. And Naomi's mum and dad came and stayed at her house. Not only did they swap houses, they swapped cars. Better than that, our kids went and stayed with Naomi's parents at that house. We had the house to ourselves. It was us that had the holiday. It was better than either of the original solutions that we brought to that den.
It was great.
Yep. Hey, we will just finish on this point. Sometimes you need to compromise. Sometimes it's neither your point or my point that's going to win. It's going to be somewhere halfway through. Maybe that's not going to be completely satisfying, but it's still a way forward. And sometimes you might have to give in more. Sometimes I might have given more. Honestly, you don't keep a roster to see whose turn it is to surrender this time. But it should be, you should be aware of the fact that sometimes it's my turn to win, sometimes it's their turn to win in this area, and this is the way that you keep going forward. There is so much more about relationships. And I love to summarize the heart of good relationships as grace and gratitude. Grace is a recognition of the person that you're with is not perfect. They have their faults and failings just like I do. But grace is seeing past that to only choose to see the loveliness, the wonder, the fantastic nature of the person, forgiving them their faults. That's grace. And gratitude is that recognition of, aren't you so fortunate to have this person in your life? Wouldn't your life be so much worse off without this person? It's looking at the amazing fact that you found each other. More than that, that person was willing to commit themselves to you for the rest of your life. And so, grace and gratitude, a fantastic, I think, motto to stick over your relationship. It's a wonderful union of two imperfect people having perfect moments together and being grateful for that. So grateful for you to invite us down here to share this morning. So grateful for people that have provided the technical support. Thank you so much up there. They get overlooked sometimes. And for your hospitality this morning. It's been a real privilege to be here. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.